so we created this service where we do anesthesia teleconsulting on video. So people log into our website, they upload the medical records, they get an anesthetic protocol, and then whenever they're ready to anesthetize that patient, they just log in, click on that patient, start video, and one of our team, it's there with them the whole time, from induction to recovery. So we watch the whole anesthetic event, and it's literally like having one of us there without the cost of having
You're not
one of
flying
us
in
there.
an
So,
anesthesiologist, but you've got somebody
correct.
over your shoulder, so to speak, the whole time during the surgery.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Veterinary Blueprint Podcast, brought to you by Butler Vet Insurance, hosted by Bill Butler. The Veterinary Blueprint Podcast is for veterinarians and practice managers who are looking to learn about working on their practice instead of in their practice. Each episode, we will bring you successful, proven blueprints from others both inside and outside the veterinary industry. Welcome to today's episode.
Welcome to this episode of the Veterinary Blueprints Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Butler, and today we are joined by Gianluca Bini, who is a board-certified anesthesiologist and owner and founder of Safe Pet Anesthesia. We did a podcast episode with him last year, and I ran into him at VMX 2026, and he said, man, we've had an awesome year. It'd be awesome to be on the podcast and update the listeners on where we are. So we're honored to have him join us a year from our last podcast episode as he continues to grow his anesthesia empire across North America. Welcome, Gianluca.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah,
Now,
we met last year, and this year's been crazy. Like it's nuts.
It's been crazy. We were chatting at VMX. So last year, truth be told, you sucked me in with your golden retriever because you have a golden retriever that you bring to your booth. We were just chatting before we started recording, and you suck everyone in with this golden retriever. He's just the best dog. And I started talking to you last year at VMX. We recorded a podcast episode, and then I ran into you this year at VMX. You said, Bill, we've grown like gangbusters. And we were working with practices all across North America, not just the United States, but also Canada. And so we've grown like gangbusters. But for those listeners who don't know about Safe Pet Anesthesia, describe kind of what you are, who you service, and the vision for why you thought that this was something that needed to be out there in the vet industry world.
Yeah, so Safe Pet Anesthesia came from, an idea of, we have only 260 board certified anesthesiologists in the US, right? 99% of pets don't have access to one of us. And so me and my wife kind of tried to figure out a way to expand access to one of us. And so we created this service where we do anesthesia teleconsulting on video. So people log into our website, they upload the medical records, they get an anesthetic protocol, and then whenever they're ready to anesthetize that patient, they just log in, click on that patient, start video, and one of our team, it's there with them the whole time, from induction to recovery. So we watch the whole anesthetic event, and it's literally like having one of us there without the cost of having
You're not
one of
flying
us
in
there.
an
So,
anesthesiologist, but you've got somebody
correct.
over your shoulder, so to speak, the whole time during the surgery.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was chatting with a practice owner yesterday, actually, where she was saying that they have somebody that they could potentially bring it in, but in person, but every time they had to charge several $1,000s to do so, because of course, if you're coming in for one single case, you need to pay the daily fee for the anesthesiologist, and then the flights, and then the lodging and all that stuff, and the cost racks up pretty quickly, versus like this, it's for the first couple of hours we charge a tenth of that. So it's extremely affordable, and most owners can do it. And so that's what we wanted to. The only way to do this was online. We wanted to expand access to care, and this was the only way. It's been a kind of a journey. Like we had to create our own platform. Like there wasn't anything like this out there. We tried to reach out to Zoom, tried to reach out to Microsoft Teams Enterprise. There was nothing in existence like that. We had to start from scratch. And so we hired developers, we created our thing, and so far it's been interesting.
So last year when you were starting this up, you were working in some practices. I mean, tell us where you were a year ago and where you are now and how you scaled from last. So you're providing this service in practices, you're providing access for clients to be able to have a board certified anesthesiologist providing oversight care for the, I mean, I've got a little cat, Louie. And cats have a hard time with anesthesia sometimes. So like if my vet said, yeah, for an extra $200, you could have a board certified anesthesiologist provide oversight of the surgery, is like, oh, well, yeah, I'm already paying $2,000. What's an extra $200 at that point? Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
And so you're providing this service. So talk about the scale that you've gone from, a couple practices to where you are now.
Yeah. We started 2025 with I think we had like 3 practices in January 2025. And now today we are at 147.
Wow.
So across US and Canada. To be honest with you, people will say, you need to do marketing and whatnot. What made us grow? It's word of mouth. It's people that they know each other, they talk about us, and then the other, clinic wants to use us. People that see it on, they refer the patient to a specialist, and then the specialist put it in the medical record. And then the GP now is like, oh, now I want these guys too. And so they reach out to us. I always open my meetings with, how did you find out about us?
Sure.
And it's all word of mouth.
It's all word of mouth.
We do spend on marketing and whatnot, but in reality, we may as well not.
You do your booth, and that's, to be fair, like I think, in the vet industry, and this is what we found, because we're getting leads and referrals online, but it's word of mouth inside of Facebook owner groups for veterinarians. Like I can't get in there. I'm not a DVM. Like I'm not going to, subliminally or subvert and say, oh yeah, I'm a DVM and try and get in there and market. Like it's just happening organically because this veterinary world and industry, they all speak to each other somewhere. They're in a VMG group, or they're in their practice managers or in a practice management group somewhere. And so that word of mouth inside the vet industry specifically is very unique, I think, and very powerful. Yeah. And so if one vet's using you, like, okay, well, if they use you, you must be fine. Otherwise, the veterinarian would be using you. So that word of mouth inside the industry is very powerful. Veterinarians might be on Facebook. They're not buying on Facebook marketing, but they're in Facebook groups, Facebook owner groups, speaking to each other and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So from a scale perspective, what has been you talked about having to build your own platform. I mean, what has been one of the biggest hurdles going from being in 3 practices, start of 2025 to now here we are, end of the first quarter of 2026 and 140 practices. What's been one of the biggest hurdles that you've had trying to scale? You talked about having to develop. What else has been a big hurdle for you?
Yeah, I think, thankfully, a lot of people, when they scale, the problem they have is finding help. Mm-hmm. We thankfully don't have that issue. Like we have a wait list of anesthesiologists that want to join and want to help us. Like, it's
they see the value. So anesthesiologists see the value in what you're doing. They want to help out. Maybe they're in academia and they say, well, I'd like to do some practice work. And it's a way for them to be involved in practice, even if they're in academia, to keep their hands in stuff versus just doing things at the hospital, at the vet school or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big one. I think that part of it is also like, they see how much more reach you can have, right? Like if you're stuck within the 4 walls of your hospital, you're limited to dealing with those kind of patients, right? Like we're not, versus here you have reach from, you may do a case from Manitoba, Canada, and then 2 hours later you have somebody from, Fort Lauderdale or, San Antonio, Texas. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. And so like, I think that they love that. They also, I think a lot of people, especially in our job, for the longest time, anesthesiologists have been in very, very highly specialized places.
Sure.
And that comes with a very high bill sometimes, right? And so like, I think then giving access to, to a service like this,
some
to
guy who owns a cat named Louie in Minnesota, like I would
Correct.
never pay to fly in an anesthesiologist to oversee a sedation on my cat. But if the vet offers it as an additional add-on, because you know how vets are like, well, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. It's a lot of a la carte services at vet practices when you're, option A is this much and option B is this much. And if you want the CT scan on top of it, it's this much. And it's like, well, for $200 more, I can have a board certified anesthesiologist checking in on my cat while the surgery is performed. And it's a known issue that anesthesiology for especially small animals is a problem, then let's take care of that. I mean, my mom, as an example, I mentioned Gordon Setter, I think, before we were on the call on our podcast. Her dog had a lot of problems. They think that the dog ate cannabis or CBD at a county park because the dog went wacky one day and had eaten some cannabis or CBD. And from then on, had problems with anesthesia. And one day, my mom had it in for a teeth cleaning. It was under anesthesia. The dog freaked out at the elevator, wouldn't ride the elevator down, and then had to take stairs and all this stuff. And every time they did anesthesia after that, the dog wouldn't. My mom couldn't let the dog out of the car when she got home because it was over sedated or something. And so, like, I think it is such an issue. So, for you and what you see, where are some things that go wrong? We were talking before the podcast about, practices rely heavily on drug protocols, but you talk about monitoring being one of the main issues. And we chatted about that on the first podcast. Why don't you touch on that a little bit about drug protocols versus monitoring of cases and how that plays in with what you provide as a service or what you see practices doing right or wrong?
Yeah, initially people, they ask you like, what's the protocol? They focus so much on the drugs combination and whatnot. And in reality, for most cases, you can literally pick whatever drug combination you want, as long as you stay within the dose range and it's within reason. Most pets do fine, as long as you know what the drugs do and how to fix it. If something happens, that's what you need to know. And in fact, at Safe Pet Anesthesia, we don't even charge them for the protocol. Like, we charge them for the time that we are on the call with them.
Sure. But
the work of reviewing the medical records and then coming up with the protocol and giving them a protocol suggestion we don't charge for that. Right.
Wow.
And because in reality, again, that's a protocol suggestion. If somebody logs into the call and is like, hey, we actually did something different and it worked fine for them, as long as we know what they did, that's one of the things we ask, right? Like, we double check, is this the right patient? Is this the correct weight? What did you give for pre-medication, right? Like, and so, in reality, the protocol matters in very few specific select cases. The management and the monitoring is what matters. There is a safe anesthetist. There is no safe protocol,
Sure.
And so that matters a lot, but people have this misconception of, focusing on the drugs when in reality, they need to focus on the monitor,
Which is the service that you're providing with a board certified anesthesiologist to have them
correct,
almost in the room. Because at a certain point, because, on our first podcast, we talked about the process, right? So you've got basically you tell them how to set up a camera, monitoring the equipment. And if something's happening during the procedure, you chime in over the call and say, here's what you need to do this, this, and this. And as long as they have those drugs on hand to adjust the monitoring, the veterinarians know how to administer those. It's just they may not know or see the basic changes.
Yeah.
And instead of having nothing against our technicians, licensed, unlicensed assistants out there, but there's, I think, having a board certified anesthesiologist versus a technician monitoring the vitals. I mean, that's the service, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we're kind of an extra layer on top of the technician. Like, so you need to have a technician or an assistant there.
Yep.
And to be honest, you know, a lot of them do a really, really good job,
Yes.
you know, and it's not their fault. You know, if they don't, sometimes, like, you know, there is so many variables at play, right? Like they don't really, it's not their fault, neither the doctor nor the tech. It's a matter of, you know, I don't have a clue. I always tell them, I was like, I don't have a clue on what vaccines to give to my dog. Like, I have no idea, right? Like, I take him to a general practitioner. That's not my job.
Yeah.
You know, we've been asking these people to do two jobs at the same time for the longest time, you know, and it's not fair, right? Like, we had a human anesthesiologist on our podcast, and you know, when she learned that people had to do two things at once, she was terrified.
I'm doing the surgery and I'm monitoring anesthesia at the same time, which is a little crazy in the human. Like, you wouldn't expect a human doctor to monitor anesthesia while they're performing the appendectomy.
Yeah. Can you imagine their malpractice insurance? How expensive would it be?
It would be crazy expensive.
That would be insane. It would be insane, right? So, like, and unfortunately in vet med, that's how it is, because there is no other option out there, right? Like, there is no option. And so, like, you know, it's not their fault. Like, you know, this is our job.
You're trying to monitor this
job,
machine while you're doing the surgery. And so this allows somebody to focus on this, I think, is what we're getting at. It's interesting because I was at, when I was at VMX, I'm part of vetpartners.org, and Dr. Peter Weinstein in Florida at our annual meeting said, a veterinary clinic is the only professional in the United States where they're your dentist, they're your grocer, they also are your mortician, they are your general practitioner, they provide vaccines, you go grocery shopping there. It's like the only professional, and I'm missing a whole bunch that veterinarians provide, right? And they're your surgeon and your anesthesiologist, as we're chatting about right now. And so it's such a unique profession. The veterinary industry is such a unique profession where you have this one professional who's the dentist, the surgeon, your general practitioner, you know, end of life care, and the grocery store, and your pharmacist.
It's crazy.
All wrapped into one.
It's crazy.
And so, you know, talking about what you do and how you provide it. So you mentioned, you know, the 260 roughly board certified anesthesiologists in the United States. You know, what does that gap mean for, you know, we've chatted about it a little bit, we touched on it, but what does that gap mean for general practitioners, surgeons, even specialty surgeons versus, and what that means in a day-to-day practice?
I mean, what that means is that they don't really have the help they need. You know, they can't get the help. Like, I literally got contacted by a group of, you know, a specialty place, and they were like, you know, they have 4 or 5 locations, and they were like, we've been trying to find somebody for 3 or 4 years, and we can't find an anesthesiologist. I'm sure they pay really well. I didn't ask what, you know, what
there's not enough. There's pay gaps. Like, if I can go make $400,000 a year at University of Oklahoma versus $250,000 a year, I mean, I'm just throwing out numbers, but, like, you know, that's real money. Like, you're trying to make up pay gap, really, and there's not enough, right?
It's really hard. And so, you know, they don't have an option. Like, even if they want to, like, there is places that I keep looking at, you know, we have our, you know, the board has their job listing, and there's some of them that have been sitting there for 4 or 5 years and they're unfilled. And there's, you know, 30 or 40 jobs open at all times, which is a third of or a fourth of what, you know, how many anesthesiologists are there. Like, it's crazy. Like, there is a huge gap. And so, like, and it's not that's what I'm saying. In reality, you know, it's not their fault. It's a matter of, like, you literally have no access.
It's a matter of access. I mean, I would wager, you know, here we are in Minneapolis, you know, I'm in the suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Paul. We have specialty practices here. We've got Animal Emergency Referral Center. You just dropped names. I mean, we've got Animal Emergency Referral Center. We have Allied, which are specialty that have board certified, you know, you name it. We've got Blue Pearl hospitals here. And so even within that, I would wager there's probably only a handful of board certified University of Minnesota, which is a large, well-known, renowned veterinary school. Like among those, there's probably only a handful, dozen maybe max in the state of Minnesota, if that. And I'm sure every single one of those places I just named would hire one or two board certified anything. And so if you're a vet student out there in school right now, if there's a demand for veterinarians, but if you want to invest some more time and money in school, there's probably access out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you see, the biggest mistakes or risks in anesthesia in general practice? I mean, where are those biggest risks for practitioners out there?
Yeah, I think one of the things I see the most is people nowadays, they don't invest in good monitors, right?
Monitors.
Unfortunately, and again, some of it is part of it. There are some things that they may not be aware of, like how it works or how to interpret it. But, I see people make the mistake of skimping on, $1,000 or $2,000 piece of equipment.
So $2,000 from a piece of equipment. And I was actually on a call with a veterinarian today talking about equipment and, not equipment, on insurance costs, just to dive into the insurance thing for a second. And I said, the bottom to the top, if you bought the least amount of insurance, and this is for her practice, this is unique, but the bottom to the top is like $4,000 a year difference. If you're really concerned about saving money at your practice, you should dive into your cost of goods. Like anesthesia equipment is probably not somewhere you should cut a corner. Insurance is not somewhere you should cut a corner. There's places to not cut corners. And so what you're saying is like, if you just invest a couple $1,000s more into a couple models up or a different piece of equipment for anesthesia, you can have a better clinical outcome just because you're able to monitor things better or differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other important thing is like invest into CE. Make sure that the training, and I don't want to, blame anybody here, but, a lot of these clinics, what I've seen is that they rely heavily on lunch and learns from companies that do sell products. And
here's a 1 hour talk on our product and how it works, and
it's great. But usually those companies, they do not sell anesthesia stuff, right? Like they're not drug companies. They're not, or they are, but they're not promoting the anesthetic or something like that. A lot of the anesthetic drugs we use have been on the market for 10 or 20 or 30 years. So now the patents are gone, right? And so like they don't have an interest in, promoting. They make it, they sell it, but it's not their breadwinner, right? And so like a lot of the times they're lacking those specific talk. Maybe they know everything about ticks and fleas and all that stuff, which is great.
Yeah. Yep.
You need to know that. But like, I think that investing a little bit more into, CE, send them to some more, focused conferences on those kind of topics. And I think it would be good. And
it's the exact same. It's the exact same in the insurance industry. Like I could get a free lunch and learn on glass claims for auto claims, but like I don't get involved in that. I don't just go get your windshield replaced. I have nothing to do with that. So we try and invest in higher quality continuing education that gives us either designations or, what's happening in the industry from cyber liability or employment practice. Like what's the future of what's happening out there in insurance versus just like a check the box, get a free lunch. And so that's whether it's anesthesia or something else, like investing in high quality continuing education and hearing from, experts like yourself out there. We're participating in one later this month down in Nashville on with a board certified ophthalmologist. And so,
I saw that.
I'm not sure if he's board certified, really cool. So I'm gonna hold that comment.
Yes, he is.
Okay, he is. So I'm sure he is because he owns a specialty ophthalmology practice.
He is.
So
he's a really good one.
Yeah, he is. He speaks all over the place just to promote that. But but going to listen to somebody and picking their brain, like yourself or whatever you're getting into, again, trying to be the jack of all trades, master of none, like it gets hard because you're trying to do so many things as a veterinarian. I say affectionately not a veterinarian, have no idea, and I'm not clinical at all. I talk about stuff I have no idea about on this podcast. But so as we start to wrap up here, if you could give every veterinary clinic out there one simple, immediate improvement for safety, what would it be?
One of the things that I would definitely do tonight is go through your emergency box, make sure that you have all your emergency drugs. You'll be surprised how many times clinics are missing those, or one of more of them, and know how to use them.
So when you onboard, so at Safe Pet Anesthesia, when you go through an onboarding of a practice, is that part of the protocol that you guys go through?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if I'm, Bill Butler's Vet Clinic LLC up here in PLLC up in Minnesota, Billy's Cat Clinic, and I want to onboard you to do anesthesia for us, that's one of the things that you would work through is say, hey, this is what you need in your emergency box if you're doing cat sedations for dentals.
Yeah, we do it two ways. They fill out a questionnaire first.
Okay.
And then we have a practice tour on FaceTime.
Oh,
so we go through their whole area for an hour we check that you have the appropriate stuff, where it's at. You show us the drug box, where the emergency stuff is. We go one by one through it, make sure you actually do have it. We go through a very thorough process because we don't want to be in the position where you hired us to help you out on the specific pet, and then we're in a position where we can't help you because you don't have the stuff you need.
Stuff's not there, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's a very, and we don't charge anything for it. Like the setup process is free. Like we don't have any setup fee, no contract, nothing. So it's, you can technically do one case a year, one case a month, or you can do
and you're hooking me up with
matter.
What I need on hand, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're very passionate about what you do. It's exciting to see you a year on from when number one, again, if you go to any national event, you should look up and see if Safe Pet Anesthesia has a booth at any place you're going, because if they do, they're going to have this awesome golden retriever that you just get to, it's like there's a line of people, not to talk with Gianluca or his wife, they're there to pet this awesome golden retriever. So number one, you should check them out, check their booth out for this awesome dog. But number two, they're just really great people. Passionate about helping out the vet industry in a very unique role. And it's been cool to see. I'm happy to do this podcast. When you ran into me, you just had this really awesome glow, you were super pumped, man, we've had a great year, we should be on the podcast. And I was like, I'd love to have you back on. And so it's been cool to see your growth and the service that you're providing in a unique nature to the vet industry. Where can people find you and Safe Pet Anesthesia?
SafePetAnesthesia.com.
Perfect. Just go on. I'm sure there's links, set an app.
Yep.
Fill out a call, and then you too, as a veterinary practitioner out there in the world, can have access to a board-certified anesthesiologist providing remote care to your clinical patients as you're doing sedations at your practice. Well, awesome. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Veterinary Blueprints Podcast. Thanks for joining us, Gianluca.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Make sure to check us out on all the social media and everything out there. Like and share the podcast with your friends. And we hope you join us on another episode of the Veterinary Blueprints Podcast.